Join Carol Davies on Global Voice Radio, the host of Only the Best for You. Be a change maker and unlock the secret to your best life.
Welcome to the latest show on my program, Only the Best for You, here on Global Voice Radio. My name is Carol Davies. I'm a success coach with the Passion Motivator Coaching Company. I'm so pleased to be sharing various topics to help you become a change maker, being the best you can be, and developing the finest life for yourself. Our topic for today's program is Take a Chance on Self-Love. Is the concept of self-love something you make as a priority in your life? What does loving myself mean? It has to do with being kind to yourself or loving yourself. Does it mean being good to myself, like having bubble baths, pedicures, cucumber masks? Turns out there's so much more to self-love than just pampering ourselves. Self-love is the instinct by which one's actions are directed to the promotion of one's own welfare or well-being. Self-love has often had very negative connotations, such as conceit, narcissism, or vanity. In our program today, I want to look at the positive meanings of self-love and its importance for laying a foundation for our lifelong happiness. Are you highly critical? Do you beat yourself up over failures? Do you work too much and push too hard without giving yourself time to breathe? Do you feel the need to compete, outperform others, and move ahead of the pack? Do you live with shame or a sense of not being good enough? We live in a society that regularly sends us the messages to achieve more, work harder, win, be perfect, and be the best. There is, of course, nothing wrong with having goals and dreams to pursue. However, most of us don't stop to consider whether our self-critical and competitive attitude is actually helping us achieve these goals, or whether it might actually be standing in our way. New research suggests self-love and self-compassion may be a far superior alternative. Self-criticism is a self-defeating tendency. Kristen Neff, an associate professor of human development and culture at the University of Texas and a pioneer on the research of self-compassion, has shown that when our self-worth depends on outcompeting others, we actually become more insecure and anxious. If we fail, we become highly self-critical, adding to our misery. Faced with criticism, we become defensive and feel crushed. We give up in the face of challenge. Moreover, competition fosters disconnection rather than building social connection, which research shows is essential to well-being. We view others as obstacles to overcome, and we ultimately feel more separate from others. The primary goal of our desire for success is to be successful, to belong, and to be loved. Yet, ironically, self-criticism and competition end up having the reverse effect. We are then lacking in self-love. I have found that self-love is not a destination, it's a practice. Self-love is the foundation on which we build a happy life. Without self-love, we have nowhere to put the love or abundance that comes to us. Let's look at what it means to overcome critical, self-judging thoughts to create a peaceful, empowered life. Such topics related to loving yourself include realizing that you're not broken, accepting your flaws, releasing the need for approval, forgiving yourself, letting go of comparisons, and learning to be authentic. You are probably quite familiar with the Serenity Prayer, which says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is usually used in 12-step addiction recovery programs. It's also a terrific prayer, or mantra, or reminder for many situations, ranging from being stuck in traffic to getting an unhappy medical diagnosis, and boiling down most often to the fact that the only changeable thing is one's attitude. So why can't we use the principles used to recover from our addiction of not liking who we are, and thus practice self-love? No one is ever going to love you more than you love yourself. In other words, until you're 100% into you, no one else will be. Do whatever it takes to increase your self-confidence and love who you are. You may have curly hair, you might have straight hair, you might be short, you might be tall. I mean, think about it. If you're not connected to who you really are, how are you going to connect with someone else? Part of liking yourself would seem then to involve recognizing your own good qualities. Whether you're single, married, or in a relationship, the demands of life and the expectations of those nearest and dearest to your heart can make finding time for yourself a huge challenge. Between dedicating time to parents, children, partners, siblings, friends, colleagues, and work, it's hard to even dream of stealing a little time for yourself. Join that with the guilt that many people, especially women, experience when they manage to find a few moments of time for themselves, and it becomes clear why so many people feel that finding time for themselves isn't worth the effort. But worth the effort it is, and not only because of the personal benefits you'll reap. Alone time gives you the chance to practice self-love by taking time to do the things that refresh and motivate you. It could be taking time to journal, reading a good book you've wanted to read, meditating, doing some yoga, listening to music, and so forth. The personal benefits of solitude are many. Taking time for yourself gives your brain a chance to reboot, improves concentration, increases productivity, helps you discover or rediscover your own voice, gives you a chance to think deeply, and helps you problem solve more effectively. It also gives you a better sense of balance and self-awareness that can lead to a better understanding of yourself. What drives you, what inspires you, what excites you. This in turn can have a positive effect not only on the quality of your relationship with yourself, but also on the quality of your relationship with others. But in today's world, how do you find the time to give to yourself? And equally important, how do you deal with the guilt when you somehow manage to find time for yourself? Quite interesting, this concept of finding time. As overscheduled as our lives are these days, it can be quite a challenge to find time for yourself. There are a few things you can do, such as using your lunch hour, waking up a little earlier than everyone else, and temporarily disconnecting from your gadgets such as your mobile phone or your iPad. But if you've tried these tricks and still can't seem to find any time to schedule for yourself, then you may need to take a hard look at your schedule and your priorities. What are some of the things you're doing now that can be consolidated or eliminated? Is there anything that can be postponed? What can be delegated? Maybe it's true that you can do things better than everyone else, but in most schedules, there are some things that don't need to be done better. They just need to be done. By delegating those tasks, you can free up some time for yourself, which may be much more productive in the long run than doing everything yourself. Another important point to remember is that you don't have to come up with hours and hours of alone time. Just start off small and see what happens. Hopefully, the little bit of time you get for yourself will become so reinforcing that you'll find more and more ways to get more of it. And here's another good one. How do we overcome the guilt? Some people, particularly women, feel guilty about taking time for themselves. They see themselves as the one who should be taking care of everyone else, and their needs often fall by the wayside. However, taking care of yourself is something that you should never feel guilty about. It not only models healthy behavior for ones you love, it also keeps you happy, healthy, and strong so that you can continue doing what fulfills you. And if that's taking care of others, then you're in an even better position to do that. Moreover, guilt is counterproductive in reaping the full benefits of solitude. If you spend all or even some of your newly found time feeling guilty that you found it, then doesn't that defeat the purpose? If you need even more justification to lose the guilt, consider these points. Spending time with yourself is time well spent because it makes you a happier person to be around. Spending time with yourself benefits everyone because by having a happier and healthier mindset, you're in a better frame of mind to take care of the people who are important to you. And spending time with yourself is preventative medicine to combat burnout. What good will you be to anyone if you eventually burn out? And you will if you don't take care of yourself. And how about overcoming resistance? Once you begin making time for yourself, don't be surprised if you don't run into a little resistance from those in your life who are used to you being always available. There are many reasons why this resistance might happen. Insecurity, overdependence, feeling slighted or rejected, or simply because they have become accustomed to always having you around. Don't let their resistance stop you. Reassure these people that you're still there for them, but in order to be there for them over the long haul, you also have to take care of yourself. Then do it. Just as they've grown accustomed to you always being there for them, they'll eventually get accustomed to you taking time for yourself. But you must do it. Hopefully the ideas I've shared here will leave you inspired and motivated to find ways to make time for yourself. If you need a little bit more inspiration, here's a quote I like from Marty Harold. She writes in Personal Growth and the Art of Inspired Living blog. She says, when we take some time to solely think about ourselves and not have to consider our impact on others, we begin the process of true self-awareness. It can be a little daunting at first, but the result of this awareness is that you learn what drives you, what excites you, and what motivates you. This newfound self-awareness is a beautiful thing, and it can have a dramatically positive effect on your life and relationships. So finding time for yourself is very important in practicing self-love. People may call you selfish, which can be a very negative thing to hear. Just agree with them that you are indeed being self-ish. This will be puzzling to others, as it is hard to attack someone who is agreeing with them. What you mean is that you are concentrating on what is important for your needs in life. You are your number one priority. Excuse me. If you have always put others and their needs first, then practicing self-love and self-compassion may be a challenge at first. Self-compassion is a healthy alternative that reaps results. Where self-criticism leaves us powerless and distraught, self-compassion is at the root of empowerment, learning, inner strength, and self-love. With self-compassion, we value ourselves not because we've judged ourselves positively and others negatively, but because we are intrinsically deserving of care and concern, just like everyone else. Self-compassion means treating ourselves as we would a friend. Rather than berating, judging, or adding to a friend's despair, we listen with empathy and understanding, encourage them to remember that mistakes are normal, and validate their emotions without adding fuel to the fire. Neff defines self-compassion as being kind and understanding toward oneself in instances of pain or failure, rather than being harshly self-critical. Perceiving one's experience as part of the larger human experience, rather than seeing them as isolating and holding painful thoughts and feelings in mindful awareness, rather than over-identifying with them. Self-critical overachievers are not the only ones that lack self-compassion. Some of the kindest people do as well. Neff's work confirms this observation. There is no correlation between the trait of self-compassion and the feelings of compassion towards others. Many people, women in particular, are far more compassionate and kinder towards others than to themselves. Fortunately, self-compassion can be learned. It is a practice that can help us all become less self-critical, and by preventing the stress and turmoil thereof, allow us to be happier, more successful, and of greater service to others. Self-compassion leads to increased strength. Self-compassion does not mean we stop working hard and aiming for success. Instead, it is a change in attitude and is linked with greater well-being as well as superior performance outcomes. Nor does self-compassion imply self-indulgence. For example, a parent who cares about her child will insist on the child eating vegetables and doing her homework, no matter how unpleasant these experiences are for the child. Similarly, taking it easy on yourself may be appropriate in some situations, but in times of overindulgence and laziness, self-compassion will probably involve toughening up and taking responsibility. Self-compassion also leads to increased productivity. When you are motivated by self-compassion, you understand failure not as a painful indicator of defeat, but as a learning opportunity from which growth can follow. Whereas self-criticism leads to painful and self-defeating emotions in the face of failure, self-compassion embraces challenge. People with higher self-compassion are therefore more likely to improve their performance after failure. Also, by preventing the defeating effects of self-criticism, self-compassion allows us to maintain peace of mind and thereby retain our energy. By remaining calm and understanding in the face of rejection, failure, or criticism, we develop level-headedness, strength, and emotional stability, which allow us to have higher well-being and to be more productive and successful. Self-compassion also leads to decreased stress. The research into the physiology of self-compassion versus self-criticism is still pending. Neff hypothesizes a simple model. Harsh self-criticism activates the sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight syndrome, and elevates stress hormones such as cortisol in our bloodstream. When this has a hold on us, we cannot learn from and engage with the kernel of truth that may be there to serve us. Also known as the hugging hormone, oxytocin is released in lactating mothers during hugging and is associated with feelings of well-being, trust, and loyalty. Here's some practices I'd like to suggest for boosting self-compassion. 1. Write yourself a letter. Take the perspective of a compassionate friend so that you can imagine that you are this other person. What would a compassionate and kind friend say to me right now? What would their words be? Later, come back and read the letter and receive it from yourself. 2. Write down your self-talk. If you are self-criticizing because, for example, your jeans don't fit you or you said the wrong thing in a situation, write down the self-critical words that come to mind and then ask yourself if you would ever say these words to a friend. What would a friend say? 3. Develop a self-compassion mantra. Develop something that is easily memorized so that when something difficult happens, you can go to your phrases. They are not positive affirmations, but reminders. Here is the self-compassion that Neff developed for herself. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion that I need. Neff's son has autism, and when he would have a tantrum in public, she would immediately turn to her self-compassion mantra, partly as a focus for her mind, but also because she needed most at that moment was emotional support for herself so she could deal with the situation calmly and with more grace. The fourth suggestion I have is meditation. Meditation is a process which, through contemplation and relaxation, we can begin to loosen the grip of self-critical thoughts and emotions. There are many forms of meditation practice, from mantra meditations to breathing practices, mindfulness to yoga, or nature walks. Find a practice that works for you and allows you to create space and quiet in your mind. With everything that I've been sharing with you, just remember that practicing self-love is so very important for your physical health, your spiritual health, and also just for you yourself. Take the time to look after yourself and your life will indeed improve. I do hope that some of what you've heard today will help you become what you are capable of becoming. You deserve to have the best life you can design and make it happen. Go for your dream. You can do it. If I can help you with further information or answer any questions, please contact me, Carol Davies, the Passion Motivator, at my website, www.thepassionmotivator.com, or by email at coachcaroldavies@gmail.com, especially if you would like a copy of the suggestions that I have explained to you today on developing self-love for yourself. Remember, making changes in your life is something you can do. Tune in next week for more tips on how to have your best life ever. Bye now.
Tune in every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern for Only the Best for You with Carol Davies on Global Voice Radio.